Hey everyone, welcome to our LinkedIn Live. James Azar here with CyberHub Engage. Sorry for my radio silence the last few days. I've been conserving my voice and my health. I developed a fever over the weekend, and as such, I've been trying to save my energies for these live sessions because they're so much better than anything else I'd do. Chris Calvert, co-founder of Response Software, also like a really cool dude. Chris, welcome to the LinkedIn Live, man.
Thanks for having me on, James.
I gotta tell you, we were for everyone kind of watching and listening. I gotta tell you this. Chris is like the coolest thing because you're like a scientist. You're not really a cyber dude, Chris, right?
Well, I'm a little bit of all of those. I definitely do science, not sales. Even though I don't tell my sales brethren that too loudly or aggressively. But I come out of the security operations world, but science is everything to finding bad guys. So yes, even though I'm probably more qualified as nerd than scientist.
See, I mean, but here's the thing though. What's a nerd and what's a scientist?
It's a good question.
What's a nerd and because let's think about it. What's it called? That show on TV. Man, I'm forgetting it. Very, very popular show with Sheldon. Big Bang Theory. Big Bang Theory. Sorry, folks. I'm recovering from, I don't know if it's COVID or not, but I'm recovering. I may still have it. I don't know. That's why we're remote. That's why everyone's remote. Stay safe, stay in quarantine. But Big Bang Theory kind of changed the whole aspect of nerd and geek and scientist, because what's one without the other? But you can still be a cool dude and be a scientist.
Well, I tend to think of scientists as, people with PhDs and nerds as people who have studied far more than that, never done learning about new things.
I think you and I have both operated businesses, and we know that a degree and a PhD means nothing. If you do a PhD with no passion, it means nothing. You're the most boring person on the planet. You've got passion and no PhD, you probably can, get to Mars quicker.
Well, I've always found it very interesting looking at actual scientists. My parents were mathematicians, and my mom studied partial differential equations. And I went to her for help one time with homework. And her response was, I can't solve the problems. I can only prove whether or not there is a solution. And I'm like, basically you can't help me. Got it.
It's we live in a very, very challenging time.
Yes, we do.
You and I recorded our session for the virtual summit that airs on Thursday. For those that want to register, there's a link on the bottom of this video for you folks to register and be part of our virtual summit. Exclusive access through the link below, so you can go and register there. And we talk a little bit about remote security operations, from managing your cybersecurity staff and your SOC team remotely now that they may not be able to make it to the SOC, but also your just remote workforce. And I think when you and I recorded last week, I was still healthy and happy, and we were talking like this is going to end in a few weeks, and now here we are, not even a week later. We now realize this is probably going to drag on to the end of April. How does that change kind of a little bit of our discussion, if any?
I was thinking about that as well, and I don't know that it does. I mean, all of the things we talked about, lots of different solutions for sort of optimizing your bandwidth and your control and your security as people are doing remote security operations, all of that, I think we're in a new normal. I think that for a significant period of time in front of us, and maybe even a much longer period of time beyond this immediate issue, we're going to be working remotely more often. People are going to be remotely once they're established, and we set up the protocols and the approaches and all that, and we find out how well it works. We may be surprised at how much productivity we actually get, given the fact that we are going to be working more remotely for a significant period of the future.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I can tell you that even from all productivity aspects, I'm either when I'm really plugged in, and you get that because we're military guys. Like when military guys plug in, we plug in. There's a scene in the movie The Social Network I don't know if you've seen it, the Facebook story where
Absolutely.
at the end of the story, the partner that he screwed comes in and he's plugged in, and Mark Zuckerberg's allegedly just coding away, and people are like, he's plugged in, and he smashes his MacBook. The Hollywood dramatics. I think when we're plugged in 12 hours, 15 hours, 16 hours. And I think people are now looking at this and going, this is going to redefine work-life relationship and work-life balances. And in a very good way. I think, I don't want to focus on the negative. And I'll tell you why, Chris. We're on a live session here, and I want to be positive. I want to share good news with people. I think this is going to be a positive change for people. We may find it efficient to work 4 days a week, where 1 day a week you're 10 hours in the office, and the other 3 days you're working those 10 hours from home, and you get a 3-day rest day, but you're just as effective as you would be if you were working 5 days a week for 8 hours. Do you think that's doable? You think that's interchangeable?
I think there's going to be difficulty in connecting and disconnecting. I've been working at home for many, many, many years, and I love it when I'm not traveling. I'm working from home, but I'll tell you, I don't come to my office outside of my office hours. I have basically a room in my house that's, sort of tainted because that's where I work. And, it's really hard not to wander down here at 7 o'clock at night and log back in and, start looking at things and working on things. I think a lot of folks are going to learn those skills now. And, it's super important to your mental engagement. It's super important to your ability to analyze. We're talking about security operations. That's there's a lot of work that goes on in your head to do the type of analysis that SOC analysts do. We're going to have to save our ability and our energy for that type of analysis, which is going to mean not being 24/7 plugged in.
How does technology and what type of technology is really going to smooth this transition over? Because as we're figuring out right now, government can't run anything. It needs private enterprise and private companies to really get things done. I think when you look around the world, every place where government is in charge of this kind of trying to coordinate everything in their own wheelhouse, people are just dying in the streets, unfortunately. And we're seeing private enterprise really step up with a lot of different solutions. So what kind of technology are we going to need in the cybersecurity industry to really continue to thrive? And what technologies out there that already exist that could be retrofitted to help kind of smooth this transition and ensure we still run a secure organization in these times for the foreseeable future?
Well, clearly that's going to start with secure communications, right? The ability to communicate securely, encrypted video meetings, or, as you and I talked about in the podcast, a lot of folks are turning video off because of the amount of bandwidth that's being, taken up by everyone streaming constant video. So it may be that we have to turn the video off, but we definitely need to have as much, cryptography and security around all of our communications as possible. Even things like when we're texting with our coworkers, it should be over Signal rather than, standard text. Being aware of all of the, what used to be when I could holler at you across the SOC, we didn't need that type of communications technology. Now we could be easily communicating via text, via video, via, Slack, and all of these other solutions that are cloud-based hosted type solutions. We need to be aware of our security on those.
Yeah, there's that's a really interesting point, because what it brings up is the fact that a predominant amount of people today who operate within security operations are finding themselves still having to drive to work and do social distancing in a SOC. And while that's a short-term solution, what happens if we go into a complete and total shutdown where SOC may not be essential anymore, especially for private enterprise? So what are some of the workarounds on that? Because, you and I were talking and you said, listen, most SOC analysts don't even get a company laptop.
That's right. And actually, I think, one of the things that I see going on around me a lot is, the all hands on deck to deploy laptops, set up more VPNs. The VPN infrastructure has been for traveling workers, not all workers. And now we've got to repurpose and rescale that to be able to support everybody. And actually, I saw a very interesting LinkedIn post from the CISO of Microsoft, Brett Arsenault, talking about, split tunnel VPNs versus dedicated VPNs. From a security perspective, I would prefer people had a single device that they were using. And for the SOC, this is even more important because they're accessing such sensitive information. I don't want that device to be able to go anywhere else other than my corporate network, which is a dedicated tunnel VPN. When you have a split tunnel VPN, you can also go to other websites and go to, maybe lab resources you have in your home at the same time. They're doing that so that the companies are not carrying all of the bandwidth, so you don't have to all come in through the VPN and then go back out to other things you might do personally. I think that's a really interesting trade-off. And I think a lot of people, in particular security operations, are not going to make it. They're not going to want to have split tunnel VPN. They're going to want to have dedicated devices that can only connect into their work-related, job, rather than being a multi-purpose device that a user can use, or a bring your own device that you're just repurposing for work.
Yeah,
this is going to be important.
You're absolutely right. Although I'm gonna push back on you. I think when you look at it from a security perspective, you'd rather give someone a split tunnel VPN almost, simply because if it's a BYOD, or and as you said something earlier, and I'll bring this back and kind of try to pinch you with it and see how you deal with it, Chris. But at 7 p.m. when you're done eating dinner and it's so easy to go back downstairs and plug in. Well, just like that, it's also easy while you're doing work to kind of swipe to the side about this house project you're looking at or things you need to do. And so while you could be plugged into the corporate network, you could start site surfing, you could start looking at other things, and those could present a security risk to your device and to your corporate network. So how do you even those two out? Because people aren't black and white. They're not, there's always that gray area, and that gray area is where all the security risks lie.
That's absolutely the case. I'm a dedicated device person. I have a corporate device that I only do corporate work on, and I have a personal device that I only do personal work on. And I'm real careful about not blending or mixing those two, so that I can have not the best user experience, but the best security on my work device, where on my personal device, I'm more concerned with user experience and personal security, home security.
So, but that's you.
Yeah, all right.
That is you. But that's not everyone, Chris. I'm going to push back on you, because a predominant amount of people have one laptop. They probably have one cell phone. They have one tablet. While a lot of people collect electronics, that's not always, you and I have separation. People who are watching my set now see I've got another computer behind me. I have another computer right here. So yes, I know the separation of personal and business computers as well, but you and I are not the 97% of the population that really does use one device for everything, including kids logging in sometimes to do homework or talk with their friends or do Zoom call with grandma. So again, kind of split tunnel VPN. Wouldn't that be a safer choice than a dedicated VPN?
This is a business risk decision. And for your typical user, for your typical employee at a company, it's probably good. But if you're having people who are reviewing the most sensitive security information in your environment, that are monitoring attackers who may be actively attacking you at this moment, that information deserves higher levels of protection. It deserves to be isolated to a single device. That's very critical information, because it's the keys to the kingdom. If you want to know how to break in, someone who just successfully broke in as detected by a security operations center just showed you how. And that information is super important that it doesn't get shared. So there's a differential risk based on your role in the company and how you might do this working from home.
So I will tell you this. So Vladimir, who's on our live chat, says there may be some households that may have to increase their ISP bandwidth depending on the types of connectivity needed for work, location, and family use all at the same time. So how do you start dealing with that?
That, the first thing to do is to conserve bandwidth. right? Use the least bandwidth options that are available to you, because I think the entire world is feeling the problem with bandwidth. I got an email from my internet provider today saying how hard they were working to keep the network up, and they apologized for little bits of degradation that are going on. And I've gone from 280 megabit to 180 megabit, and that still works great for me. But folks that are down at 10 megabit or 25 megabit are going to be having significant degradation. And I think that means we do less video, we do less, things that are bandwidth intensive. And our teenagers, they don't get to surf during work hours if they're at home.
So what do they do?
Well, I'm having them inventory the pencils. We're going to get the spreadsheet inventories here shortly.
That's awesome.
The old army in me.
That's awesome. I want to give a shout out to Ken Morris, because he said I was right in our discussion. Humans tend to take. I'm kidding. He does say though that generally humans will take the most convenient route in being lazy. I think that, Chris. You've been doing cyber operations for such a long time. You know this so well, and not everyone is structured. I think if everyone in the U.S. served in the military, people would be far more structured, but they don't. And unfortunately, people are scattered brained and they forget stuff. And when you review logs, it's so common. In fact, when I speak to a lot of my CISO peers, when we talk about logs and we see people use their work computers for porn, I mean, they don't realize it. They're just on their computer, they're dizzy dozing, thinking, doing whatever, and they end up somewhere they shouldn't be on a work device. So, I mean, there's a lot to that. But so Vladimir has a question. So how do you articulate the split tunnel is an increase in risk to the business to those that need to hear it?
Well, so the split tunnel, when I click on a link, which users are just going to do, as you and I discussed in the upcoming podcast, I'm going to get sent to that resource with no intervening security controls. It's going to go from my home network to that malicious link directly. If I don't have split tunnel VPN, I have dedicated tunnel VPN, then I'm going to have all of the security controls provided by my company between me and that link that I clicked on. I'm going to go through their network intrusion. I'm going to go through their IPSs. I'm going to go through their URL filtering and review prior to getting to that potentially malicious link. Now, I really think it's a risk decision, because you're not going to put everybody on a dedicated VPN versus a split tunnel VPN. But by role, it's really important to choose which one makes the most sense. And what you're doing is you're allowing your corporate security infrastructure to provide additional security for the users, even though they're working from home.
Absolutely. Well, for those watching, again, thank you so much for joining us on this LinkedIn Live. There's a lot more of what Chris just shared on our virtual summit that'll be airing Thursday, April 2nd. The link is in the comment section. Micah was kind enough in his remote work to post the link right there to make sure that you guys can register to get the exclusive content. So make sure you do that. I want to thank Chris, one, for your support. Number two, for being so open to kind of jump on today and kind of do this spontaneous. We really didn't prep any questions for this. We said we're just going to jump on and just talk what's on our hearts. Things are changing so fast and so dynamic that we can no longer plan ahead. We just have to be able to improvise and do our best within our business continuity plans to make it through this crisis. And this too shall pass, like all things.
Absolutely. James, thank you so much for having me on and, having a chance to talk about this. And everybody out there, just be safe, be healthy.
Absolutely. Be safe, be healthy. Happy birthday to my business partner, Corinne. It is her birthday today. We've been celebrating all day, but I will now give her the most embarrassing shout out on the planet on LinkedIn Live. Happy birthday, Corinne. We wish you a lot of health, success, wellness, stay safe, obviously stay healthy, and a lot of prosperity. And that's it for us here, folks, on LinkedIn Live. You can obviously comment below. Join us later on for we'll be back tomorrow with another live session, and then Thursday for our live summit. Chris Calvert, the co-founder and VP of strategy at Response Software. Make sure you check them out. They're also tagged in this post. Follow them. They've got a lot of really, really cool stuff coming up to help you deal with the crises as we come along and do that. That's it for us here today. My name's James Azar. Thank you so much for tuning in, and stay cyber safe.